What happens when Hollywood's most beloved star walks onto one of daytime television's most controversial stages, only to become the target of relentless attacks that cross every line imaginable? In just 36 seconds of one single comment, Joy Behar would ignite a firestorm that would turn a routine interview into an absolute battlefield, transforming a promotional appearance into the most explosive moment in talk show history. The studio lights blazed hot that morning as Will Smith settled into the guest chair on The View, his trademark smile lighting up the set. He was there to talk about his latest film, a passion project years in the making. The audience applauded warmly as Whoopi Goldberg began the introductions, and for the first few minutes, everything seemed perfectly normal. "So, Will, tell us about this new movie," Whoopi started, her tone friendly and welcoming. "We heard you put your heart and soul into this one." Will leaned forward, his enthusiasm genuine and infectious. "You know, this film is really special to me. It's about family, about redemption, about second chances. We spent 3 years developing it, and I got to work with some incredible actors who brought so much depth to every scene." Sunny Hostin jumped in next, her questions thoughtful and engaging. "The early reviews are saying this might be your best dramatic performance yet. How did you prepare for such an emotionally demanding role?" "I worked with an amazing acting coach," Will explained, his voice filled with passion. "We dove deep into the psychology of this character. He's a man who's made mistakes, but he's fighting to become better, to be there for his kids. That's something I think everyone can relate to on some level." The conversation flowed naturally, with Sarah Haynes asking about the filming locations and Ana Navarro inquiring about the diverse cast. Will answered each question with grace and thoughtfulness, sharing behind the scenes stories that had the audience laughing and engaged. But then Joy Behar, who had been unusually quiet up until this point, decided it was her turn to speak. "So, Will," Joy began, her tone already carrying an edge that made the other hosts glance at each other nervously, "let's talk about your personal life instead of this movie propaganda." The audience went quiet. Will's smile faltered, just slightly, but he maintained his composure. "I'm here to talk about the film, Joy. That's what we agreed on." "Oh, come on," Joy pressed, waving her hand dismissively. "Nobody cares about another Hollywood movie. What we really want to know is why you think you deserve to be called a role model when your personal decisions have been so questionable." Whoopi immediately tried to intervene. "Joy, let's stick to the topic at hand." But Joy wasn't backing down. "No, Whoopi, I think the audience deserves honesty. Will, you parade around like you're this perfect family man, but we all know the truth about your marriage, your lifestyle choices. Don't you think that makes you a hypocrite?" Will's jaw tightened, but his voice remained steady. "Joy, I came here with respect for this show, and for all of you. I'd appreciate the same courtesy." "Respect?" Joy laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the studio. "You want respect while you're out here selling us fantasies? While you're making millions pretending to be something you're not?" Sarah tried to redirect. "Why don't we talk about the charitable work Will's been doing? The foundation he started for underprivileged youth?" "Charity?" Joy scoffed, cutting Sarah off mid-sentence. "That's just a tax write-off. That's just publicity. Will, when are you going to admit that everything you do is calculated, that you're just another fake Hollywood elitist looking down on regular people?" The other hosts looked visibly uncomfortable now. Ana Navarro shifted in her seat. "Joy, this is really inappropriate." Will took a deep breath, still trying to maintain his dignity. "I understand that controversy gets ratings, Joy, but attacking someone's character without basis is not journalism. It's just cruel." "Oh, so now I'm cruel?" Joy's voice rose sharply. "I'm cruel for asking the questions everyone else is too scared to ask. I'm cruel for pointing out that you live in a mansion while people are struggling, that you fly private jets while lecturing about the environment." "I never lectured anyone about anything," Will responded, his voice growing firmer. "And my charitable work isn't for show. It's because I actually care about making a difference." Joy leaned forward aggressively. You care about making a difference? Then why don't you care about being honest with your fans? Why don't you care about admitting that your perfect image is a carefully constructed lie? Whoopi tried again to regain control. Okay, we need to take this down a notch. But Joy was on a roll now, her words coming faster and sharper. And let's talk about your acting, Will. Let's be real here. You've been playing the same character for 30 years. You're not a real actor. You're a personality who got lucky. The audience gasped. Sonny's mouth fell open in shock. Even the camera operators seemed frozen by the audacity of the attack. Will's hands gripped the armrests of his chair. That's your professional opinion as a comedian who tells jokes for a living? At least I'm authentic, Joy shot back. At least I don't pretend to be something I'm not. You're a manufactured product, Will. A brand. And frankly, I think that brand is past its expiration date. Sarah looked like she wanted to disappear. This is getting out of hand. No, let her finish, Will said, his voice tight with controlled anger. I want to hear exactly what Joy thinks. Please continue. Joy seemed almost gleeful at the invitation. You want me to continue? Fine. I think you're overrated. I think you've coasted on charm and that smile for decades. I think your movies are formulaic garbage designed for people who don't want to think too hard. And I think you coming on this show acting all humble and gracious is an insult to our intelligence. Joy, stop, Anna said firmly. This is beyond unprofessional. But Joy ignored her. And another thing, Will. Your kids. Let's talk about how you raised your kids to be just as entitled and out of touch as you are. Letting them do whatever they want. No discipline, no structure. Is that the family values you're promoting in this movie? That was the line. Will stood up slowly, his entire demeanor shifting. The playful, friendly guest was gone, replaced by someone who had reached their absolute limit. I don't you dare talk about my children, Will said, his voice low and dangerous. You can say whatever you want about me, but you will not disrespect my family. Joy stood up too, matching his energy. I'll say whatever I want. This is my show. Actually, it's not just your show, Whoopi interjected, standing as well. And you've gone way too far, Joy. Oh, please, Joy snapped at Whoopi. Don't act like you weren't thinking the same things. Whoopi's eyes flashed with anger. I absolutely was not. Will came here as our guest, and you've treated him abhorrently. Will turned to face Joy directly, his voice shaking with barely contained fury. You know what your problem is, Joy. You're so bitter, so angry at the world, that you have to tear everyone else down to feel important. You hide behind this show, behind this panel, and you throw bombs at people because it makes you feel powerful. How dare you, Joy sputtered, her face reddening. No, how dare you, Will countered, his voice rising. How dare you invite someone onto your show and ambush them? How dare you make assumptions about my life, my family, my integrity? You don't know me. You don't know anything about the real me. Sonny stood up, trying to create some space between them. Everyone needs to calm down. But Will wasn't done. You want authentic, Joy. Here's authentic. You're a bully. You use this platform to make people feel small because something inside you is broken. And I feel sorry for you. I genuinely do. Because all the success, all the years on television, and you're still this unhappy, this negative, this desperate to hurt people. Joy's face contorted with rage. Get out. I can get off my set right now. Gladly, Will said, pulling off his microphone. Because I don't stay where I'm not respected. And I definitely don't stay where someone thinks they can attack my children and get away with it. Will, please, Sarah said softly, reaching out a hand. You don't have to leave. Will looked at her, and his expression softened slightly. I appreciate that, Sarah. I really do. You've all been wonderful, except for one person. But I can't sit here and pretend this is okay. I won't give this behavior a pass by staying. Anna stood up and walked over to Will. I'm so sorry this happened. This is not what we're about. I know, Will said, shaking her hand, and I appreciate you speaking up. Joy was practically vibrating with anger now. Oh, how touching. Everyone rallying around the movie star. Poor Will Smith couldn't handle a few tough questions. Will turned back to her one final time. Those weren't tough questions, Joy. Tough questions are about the work, about the craft, about the message of the film. What you did was a personal attack designed to humiliate me on national television. There's a difference, and deep down, you know it. Whoopi moved between them. Will, I'm mortified by what happened here today. You deserved so much better. Thank you, Whoopi, Will said sincerely. That means a lot coming from you. Joy couldn't help herself, throwing one last barb. Oh, run away, Will. Run back to your mansion and your fake life. At least we got to see the real you today, the ego behind the smile. Will stopped at the edge of the set and looked back. His voice was calm now, almost sad. You know what, Joy? I came here excited to share something I'm proud of. I came here with open hands and an open heart, and you took that and tried to destroy it because that's what you do. That's who you are. I hope someday you figure out why you need to be this way, because it's a sad way to live. With that, Will Smith walked off the View set. The audience sat in stunned silence. The cameras kept rolling, capturing every awkward second as the remaining hosts looked at each other, uncertain how to proceed. Sonny finally broke the silence. We need to go to commercial. No, Whoopi said firmly, her voice filled with authority. We need to address this. What just happened here was wrong. Joy crossed her arms defensively. I was doing my job. I was asking the hard questions. That wasn't hard questions, Anna said, her voice sharp. That was a character assassination. You went after his family, Joy. His children. They're fair game, Joy argued. They're public figures. They're kids, Sarah said quietly, but her words carried weight. They're his kids, and you used them to hurt him. Whoopi pointed at Joy. You ambushed a guest. You violated the trust of this show and everyone on this panel. We agreed we were going to talk about his film, and you turned it into a circus. Joy's defensive posture started to crack slightly. I was just trying to make good television. By humiliating someone? Sonny asked, incredulous. By making baseless accusations? Joy, you called him fake, overrated, said his charity work was just for show, attacked his parenting. Where was any of that based, in fact? Everyone knows, Joy started, but her voice had lost its conviction. Everyone knows what? Anna challenged. What exactly does everyone know? That he's one of the most successful actors of his generation? That he's been married for decades? That he's donated millions to education and youth programs? Those are the facts. Joy sat back down, suddenly looking smaller. You're all overreacting. No, Whoopi said firmly. We're reacting appropriately to watching a colleague forget every principle of respectful discourse. You owe Will Smith an apology. I'm not apologizing, Joy said stubbornly. The studio fell quiet again. Sarah looked at the audience, many of whom were shaking their heads or whispering to each other. The energy in the room had shifted completely. What started as an exciting celebrity interview had devolved into something ugly and uncomfortable. Sonny addressed the camera directly. To our viewers at home and to Will Smith, wherever he is right now, I want to apologize on behalf of this show. What you witnessed was not okay. It's not how we conduct interviews, and it's not the standard we hold ourselves to. Speak for yourself, Joy muttered. Whoopi's head snapped toward Joy. Excuse me? I said speak for yourself, Joy repeated, louder now. I stand by what I said. If he can't handle a real conversation, maybe he shouldn't be doing press. Anna's voice was ice cold. A real conversation involves mutual respect and actual questions, not personal attacks disguised as journalism. Will Smith is a public figure, Joy argued. Everything about him is open for discussion. There's a difference between discussion and destruction, Sarah said. You weren't trying to have a dialogue. You were trying to tear him down. Whoopi looked directly into the camera. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll be discussing what just happened and what it means for this show moving forward. As they cut to commercial, the tension on set was suffocating. Joy sat rigid in her chair, her arms still crossed. The other hosts gathered on the opposite side of the table, their body language making it clear whose side they were on. When the cameras came back on, Whoopi took the lead. We're back, and we need to have an honest conversation about what our viewers just witnessed. Joy Behar launched a series of personal attacks against our guest, Will Smith, that went far beyond acceptable boundaries of interview questions. Joy interrupted. I was holding him accountable. Accountable for what? Sonny asked. What exactly did he do that required that level of hostility? He came here to talk about a movie he's passionate about. That's it. He represents everything wrong with Hollywood, Joy said. The fakeness. The pretension. Or maybe, Anna said slowly, he represents success that makes you uncomfortable. Maybe seeing someone who has achieved so much and remained gracious about it challenges your worldview. Joy's eyes narrowed. Don't psychoanalyze me. Then don't project your issues onto our guests, Anna shot back. Sarah tried to find middle ground. Look, we all have moments where we push too hard or say things we shouldn't. But Joy, you have to see that this went beyond a moment. You systematically attacked this man's career, his character, his family. And he attacked me back, Joy pointed out. So after you backed him into a corner, Whoopi said, after you left him no choice but to defend himself and his family. You started this, Joy. The audience murmured in agreement. Joy looked around and seemed to realize for the first time that she had no allies in the room. Fine, Joy said, her voice tight. Maybe I came on strong. Maybe, Sonny repeated, incredulous. Okay, I came on strong, Joy amended, but my points were valid. Your points were opinions dressed up as facts, Anna corrected, and they were mean-spirited opinions at that. Whoopi addressed the camera again. To be clear for everyone watching, Will Smith handled himself with remarkable restraint given the circumstances. He tried repeatedly to redirect the conversation back to his work. He only pushed back when his family was attacked. That's not ego. And that's being a protective parent. He called me bitter and broken, Joy protested. After you called him fake, overrated, said his charity was a tax write-off, and attacked his kids, Sarah listed. You don't get to play victim here, Joy. The show continued, but the damage was done. The comfortable dynamic between the hosts had shattered. Every attempt to move to other topics felt hollow and forced. The audience remained subdued, the energy completely different from the warm, engaged crowd that had been there at the start of the show. During the next commercial break, Whoopi pulled Joy aside. You need to seriously think about what happened here today, and why you felt the need to go after him like that. Joy's response was defensive. I'm not going to be lectured by you. Then be lectured by the audience reaction, Whoopi said, gesturing to the crowd. Look at their faces, Joy. They're not on your side. When the show returned from break, they limped through the remaining segments. But everyone watching knew the real story was what had already happened. The interview that was supposed to promote a movie had instead exposed deep rifts and raised serious questions about what constitutes acceptable behavior on a talk show. As the closing credits rolled and the audience filed out, the hosts sat in heavy silence. Joy remained in her seat, isolated from the others. Whoopi, Sonny, Sarah, and Anna stood together in a cluster, speaking in low voices. The crew moved around them, already gossiping about what they'd witnessed. Producers rushed around with concerned expressions, making phone calls and holding urgent meetings. Everyone knew this was bigger than just a bad interview. This was a moment that would define the show for a long time to come. Joy finally stood and walked off set without saying goodbye to anyone. Her usual confident stride looked different somehow, less certain. The other hosts watched her go, and Sarah sighed deeply. "That was the most uncomfortable hour of television I've ever been part of," Sarah said. "Will didn't deserve that," Anna added. "Not any of it." Sunny shook her head. "The way she went after his kids. That was cruel. Just cruel." Whoopi looked tired suddenly, the weight of what happened settling on her shoulders. This show is supposed to be about different perspectives coming together to have real conversations. What Joy did today wasn't a different perspective. It was just mean. The studio audience had all left now. But their absence seemed to amplify the emptiness on set. The bright lights that had illuminated the heated exchange now felt harsh and unforgiving. "Do you think he'll ever come back?" Sarah asked. "Would you?" Sunny responded. Anna walked over to where Will had been sitting, touching the chair he'd occupied. He tried so hard to keep it professional. You could see him fighting to stay calm, to not escalate, and she just kept pushing and pushing. "Because that's what she does," Whoopi said wearily. "She pushes buttons. Usually it works because people expect it and roll with it. But she misjudged Will. She thought he'd play along with the controversy, that he'd banter back and forth. She didn't expect him to have real boundaries." "Boundaries she trampled all over," Sarah added. A producer approached the group cautiously. "We need to talk about how we're going to handle the fallout from this." Whoopi nodded slowly. Yes, we do." As the hosts filed out of the studio, the set stood empty. The chairs where such an explosive confrontation had unfolded, just sitting there innocently. The cameras were off now, but they'd captured every second of the clash. Every cutting word from Joy. Every attempt at dignity from Will. Every uncomfortable reaction from the other hosts. What had started as a simple promotional interview had exploded into something much bigger, exposing fault lines not just between a host and a guest, but within the show itself. And at the center of it all was one question that everyone was asking. How did a routine appearance turn into one of the most dramatic moments in talk show history? The answer was simple and complicated all at once. It turned in 36 seconds when Joy Behar decided that respect was optional and boundaries were suggestions. When she chose to make a spectacle out of someone's pain. When she forgot that behind every celebrity is a real person with real feelings and real limits. Will Smith had walked onto that set as a gracious guest, ready to share his passion. He walked off as someone who had been pushed beyond his breaking point, forced to choose between his dignity and staying silent while being attacked. He chose dignity. He chose to stand up for himself and his family. He chose to walk away rather than participate in his own humiliation. And in doing so, he showed everyone watching what it looks like when someone says, enough is enough. When they refuse to be a punching bag for someone else's need for conflict. When they value themselves enough to leave a situation that has become toxic. The View had hosted hundreds of guests over the years. Celebrities, politicians, authors, activists. Some interviews were memorable, some forgettable. But this one, this explosive 36-second moment that spiraled into a full-scale confrontation, would be the one people talked about for years to come. Not because Will Smith lost his temper, but because he kept it for so long in the face of relentless provocation. Not because Joy Behar asked tough questions, but because she confused cruelty with journalism. Not because the other hosts stayed silent, but because they eventually found their voices and stood up for what was right. As the studio lights finally dimmed and the last crew members packed up their equipment, the ghost of that confrontation lingered. The words spoken could not be unspoken. The damage done could not be undone. And everyone involved would carry the memory of that day, of those 36 seconds that changed everything for the rest of their careers. It was a reminder that words have power, that platforms come with responsibility, that being controversial is not the same as being insightful, and that eventually, even the most patient person will reach their breaking point when their family becomes the target. Will Smith had come to The View to talk about hope, redemption, and second chances. Instead, he got an ambush. And when he finally stood up and walked away, he did so with his head held high, his integrity intact, and his message clear. He would not be disrespected. Not for ratings. Not for controversy. Not for anything. The cameras had captured it all. The escalation, the confrontation, the dramatic exit. But what they couldn't capture was the lesson embedded in that moment. That kindness should not be mistaken for weakness. That grace under pressure has its limits. And that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away from people who refuse to treat you with basic human decency. In the aftermath, as the video spread and the reactions poured in, one thing became crystal clear. Audiences knew who the hero of this story was. And it wasn't the person sitting behind the desk throwing accusations. It was the man who stood up, spoke his truth, and refused to be diminished by someone else's need to tear him down.